And you see over on the left, he is #1, the current player of the year, Jeff Hoogland. He's watched his lead has been whittled away at by none other than Jerry Thompson. That's not going to be too much of a surprise, but he still holds the lead and hopes to add to it this weekend. Kevin Jones of TeamMetaGameGurus.com over on the right. 25th, he has been to the last 2 Players' Championships, but right now he is not in a position to make his 3rd consecutive one. He's a good finish here would, of course, help him.
Yeah, got some ground to make up. Of course, he is playing the best deck in Modern this weekend, so I expect at least a top 8 finish for him.
So both players starting with fetch lands. Hoogland getting a copy of Stomping Ground, and on turn 2, he will have the first play of the game in his copy of Wall of Roots.
Wall of Roots dramatically better for Jeff, especially on the play, than just having Birds of Paradise, because you can't just lightning bolt the wall.
Kevin, going to go ahead and debating a fetch on end step here. Oh, okay, Jeff had announced another play. Kevin was going to end step Thought Scour, but then Jeff said, wait, we're not on my end step yet. I'm going to use Wall of Roots to make a Birds of Paradise. And Kevin said, okay, well then I'm going to bolt it.
Yeah, even in the face of this extra mana sitting around, I do still like bolting the bird. It takes a pretty long game for that to start being a bad play.
It's kind of a good heuristic there for Magic. Just you always bolt the bird.
Yeah, and if Kevin has a Black Source and a Terminate, I also like just pulling the trigger on Terminate on Wall of Roots as well.
So now here is the Thought Scour. Kevin milling himself for 2. He mills into a Lightning Bolt and a Polluted Delta, draws a card.
So in the absence of Terminate, what Kevin really wants here is a Tasigur, as you see he's up to 5 cards in his graveyard.
Right, so you could do that immediately. Instead it will be Watery Grave tapped. You go back to Hoogland, and now he'll get a copy of Nahiri the Harbinger, discarding Emrakul. And draws, everything shuffles back in, Nahiri's at 6.
And now Kevin's actually in a pretty bad spot.
Because it resolved?
Yes, with the Nahiri on the table, it has so much loyalty, and the -2 to exile your creatures, you're behind the 8 ball. As you see, he's already cast a Lightning Bolt, he milled a 2nd copy, so very unlikely that he has double bolt to get that Nahiri off the table, and that card threatens to win the game on its own.
So maybe punished for that main phase Thought Scour.
Yeah, as we saw, he cast main phase Thought Scour, and he has a mana leak in his hand, so possibly a pretty severe misstep by Kevin.
Land number 3 for Kevin. He's got 2 more lands in hand, a Mana Leak and a Kolaghan's Command. Now, keep in mind, he has changed the deck so that he has a copy of Dreadbore in the main.
Peeling Dreadbore here would be very significant. If he has that changes this game very dramatically.
Gets a basic mountain, up to 3 mana. It's going to be a copy of Gurmag Angler, delving away the entire graveyard and able to leave up the Mana Leak. So you were saying this not great at pressuring the Nahiri because of her -2?
Yeah, you can get in a chip shot. It's pretty likely that Jeff will be able to block.
So you see Jeff there, pluses Nahiri to discard Emrakul. So either he's playing a lot of Emrakuls, or he certainly just drew Emrakul again immediately.
I'm going to bet that it will be the latter.
He's got to hope he doesn't do that again, or he won't be able to find it next turn.
He even went to 61 cards to avoid situations like this.
Wall of Roots will make Birds of Paradise. That's a blocker for the Nahiri.
So Kevin needs a Dreadbore right now. He picked up a Lightning Bolt. You can use Lightning Bolt to lower Nahiri's loyalty, but that's just not losing. That's not winning the game.
All right, Gurmag Angler will attack at Nahiri. He'll get the chump block he was looking for. I assume Jeff defends it here.
Jeff does have a 2nd Nahiri in hand, but the 8 loyalty Nahiri is just way more valuable.
Yeah, Wall of Roots will make a block.
Jeff has the mana available to Court of Calling for Restoration Angel if he has a Court in hand, so he could just reset the Wall of Roots as well.
That's what he's going to do, Court for 4. Kevin having none of it, Mana Leak on Court of Calling.
And this really isn't that bad for Jeff. Now Kevin is forced to use that Lightning Bolt to take this Nahiri down. And then on Jeff's turn, he still has enough loyalty to easily exile that Gourmet Angler, maybe even just cast the backup Nahiri from that point.
Kevin plays an island. Lightning bolts the Nahiri down to 5. Draw from Hoogland. Looks like he just has some number of lands in hand. Nahiri will exile away the zombie fish. And he'll play a land and pass. So with the Nahiri at 3, I believe there's a Snapcaster Mage in Kevin's hand. He could take care of that Planeswalker.
Yeah, and I actually really like Jeff not committing the second Nahiri for that exact reason. That way he can just unleash his backup after that happens.
There's the Dreadbore from Kevin. He found it.
So that backup Nahiri...
yeah, it's got a Dreadbore's name. That Snapcaster's waiting for it.
Yeah, having the Snapcaster, very important for Kevin. Though Jeff does get a couple draws to get himself in this game. Ooh!
And Jeff plays a land, end step. Kevin Jones uses Kolaghan's command to kill the Birds of Paradise and have Jeff discard, and Jeff has to discard one of the Nahiris.
So now we're actually playing a very different game.
Land 6 for Hoogland. This is the game that Kevin wanted to be playing, right?
Yeah, and this hinged heavily on Kevin drawing a couple one-of spells, but they were there.
Oh, Kolaghan's command's also a one-of.
Yeah, Kolaghan's command and Dreadbore. The Dreadbore didn't necessarily have to be there, given the way the game actually played out, but it's not insignificant that it's there now with the Snapcaster Mage.
Jeff draws, and it's a big one. It's a copy of Glenelender Archmage. If he can stick this, it's very good. He's just going to pass. So what do you think? What does that mean? What's he waiting for here?
So Kevin still has the Mana Leak in his graveyard. So Snapcaster Mage, Mana Leak, or just another Mana Leak would counter the Archmage. So if Jeff just has one more mana source, he'd be able to resolve the Archmage through a Mana Leak.
So I'll wait for that.
Another possible consideration is that Jeff only has 1 blue mana right now, so we can't cast it and leave anything up.
End step, Deceiver Exarch from Hoogland. He'll tap a Watery Grave. Draws for the turn. Windswept Heath attacks with Deceiver Exarch, so Kevin goes to 14.
Looks like Kevin's hanging out with a Terminate in hand. I think you're fine taking 1 point here. There's not, if Jeff just has Restoration Angel, you can Mana Leak it, but I don't know that Kevin has that.
Well, we see Snapcaster Mage here from Kevin. It's going to block. Oh, I like this trick a lot. It's going to block Deceiver Exarch. It's given flashback to Kolaghan's command.
And then we can use the command to finish off the Exarch, get the Snapcaster Mage back.
Yes. But Hoogland will make Glenelender Archmage. In response, Kevin will make the play. But it means that the Archmage gets to hit the table.
Yeah, Kevin, while that play is pretty good value, I think it was also pretty aggressive.
A little fancy there. If he waits, he can Mana Leak, Snap Mana Leak that Archmage.
Right, and he has so much time against just a Deceiver Exarch.
This is a case of finding a really cute play and maybe committing to it.
Kevin's position is still not bad, and with this Tassiger off the top.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I would say he's back to a pretty healthy favorite now.
Kevin Jones playing Tassiger, once again delving away the whole graveyard, but he leaves up 4 mana. Archmage will attack. Kevin can take damage. Goes to 13. And Eternal Witness from Jeff. We've seen this before. Eternal Witness with Court of Callings can just restart the whole chain.
Yeah, that's a very good top deck, and Jeff has access to the Archmage at this point in time to defend from any spells from Kevin.
Kevin's paid a big price here with that Archmage on the table. You see Tassiger, mills 2, Kevin gets a Terminate. I guess with the 2 Terminates in his hand, he can just plow through this Archmage. It's not pretty, but it's effective. Tassiger will attack, Hoogland down to 12. Land from Kevin Jones.
Yeah, with all these spells being instants, there's no onus on Kevin to act immediately. He can wait a little bit on that. You do give Jeff access to an additional body for the Court of Calling, which is a consideration.
Well, you make it so that Jeff could chord for Restoration Angel to reset an Archmage or something like that.
Yeah, that is also a problem. At the same time, with all these instants in your hand, it's not very inviting to spend a bunch of mana at sorcery speed either.
So Hoogland draws his one-of copy of Kiki Jiki. Hand is currently Kiki-Jiki, Court of Calling. He'll start by attacking with the Archmage. Kevin drops to 11, so ties up the game.
And that's exactly the kind of top deck that makes you happy that you didn't just spend your Terminates at sorcery speed.
Well, this puts so much pressure on Kevin. Here's Kiki-Jiki. I mean, if Kevin doesn't kill this now, then it's Kiki plus Archmage. I don't want any part of that.
I believe that Kevin has the tools available to come out of this with the Kiki-Jiki on stack in a pretty favorable position.
All right. So holding Kiki-Jiki still on the stack, he will terminate the Glenelender Archmage. That doesn't really matter. Jeff doesn't have to counter that.
Yeah, no express reason to counter that. And then do a couple more things with that persist trigger on the stack.
With the persist trigger on the stack, he will mana leak the Kiki-Jiki. Now Archmage comes back with a -1 counter. All right.
Yeah, and now you have a window where cleaning up the Archmage is way more inviting.
You'd finish. Do you think he finishes it off with the second terminate?
Hey, knowing that the Court of Calling is in hand to set the Restoration Angel, unless he has some more counter magic to interfere with that, I like terminating here.
And he agrees. So Kiki-Jiki down, Archmage down. This is all on Jeff's main phase. Kevin will fetch down to 10. Now he's going to look to Tasigur to finish this up.
Yep, and he still has Snapcaster Mage in hand with access to Terminate and Mana Leak. The Mana Leak likely to just remain live against good Court of Calling targets for the remainder of the game.
Sure. We go back to Kevin untapping with 7 lands. Here will be Thought Scour. He'll mill a Tasigur and a Bloodstained Mire, drawing...
So there's some interesting interplay between Tasigur and Thought Scour. If your plan is to activate Tasigur, the last card in your deck you want to get back is Thought Scour, because it's just a random card. You want to get back a spell that does something. So frequently you would prioritize delving away these cantrips when you cast your delve creatures. Given the fact that Kevin wants to leave up Snapcaster Mana Leak, it doesn't really matter what he casts because he doesn't have enough mana to activate Tasigur and leave up Snapcaster Mage.
Cast a Serum Visions that he drew off the Thought Scour, then left up 5 mana. Attacked Hoogland down to 7. And now we go back to Jeff.
For the third time this game, we find Emrakul the Aeon's Torn in Hoogland's hand.
Just, I don't know why he plays so many of that card. Eternal Witness will be used to convoke a Court of Calling. Jeff very knowingly leaving up 3 mana.
Yeah, he knows the Snapcaster Mage is there from the Kolaghan's command.
He will court up Scavenging Ooze.
So not only does this play around Mana Leak, it plays around Snapcaster Mage pretty well as well. Now has the ability to Scavenging Ooze away any card targeted by the Snapcaster.
So see, I believe Kevin has another Terminate in his hand, which...
Yeah, I mean...
Which should work.
Grixis is just great.
When you get into a top deck war against a creature deck, I don't mind drawing all Terminates. Kevin's going to do just that.
Now Jeff correctly gets the Mana Leak out of the graveyard, really has the window there.
And Jeff showing that he drew the Emrakul the 3rd time. He will scoop that one up, so game 1 goes over to Grixis Delver in the hands of Kevin Jones.
Yeah, there were some plays there that I didn't necessarily think were optimized out of Kevin, but even still, with that Dreadbore, that Kolaghan's command, I think that these Birds of Paradise matchups are just so good for Grixis that you do have quite a bit of room to play with.
So a good back and forth here. We're going to go ahead and start by looking at the sideboards. So on Jeff's side, he's got a lot of different one-ofs. He's got a one of Lone Missionary, Is It Staticaster, Scavenging Ooze, Eidolon of Rhetoric, Reclamation Sage, Thragtusk, Keranos, Kataki, and then he has some extra removal in the form of 2 Lightning Helix, 2 Negate, and 3 Engineered Explosives.
So Scavenging Ooze is the best card coming in here. That card is pretty excellent against Snapcaster Mage. It can limit graveyards for casting any of the Delve creatures, interrupts Kolaghan's command. It's just a pretty solid card in these matchups. Thragtusk is also quite good, gains a bunch of life, replaces itself when it dies, assuming it resolves. And Keranos has that same kind of caveat. Very good in play, not necessarily easy to resolve. But given the fact that Kevin is going to be pivoting more towards removal spells and less interested in counter spells, I do like bringing in Thragtusk and Keranos in this matchup.
Yeah, Ooze was good enough that we actually actually saw Jeff cord for Scavenging Ooze last game. It does just die to a Terminate, but it seemed I really liked how it interacted with Kevin's Delve spells and his Snapcaster mages.
And while Lightning Helix won't be the most exciting card in Jeff's deck, I think given the fact that the Delver deck has the potential to just run away with a turn 1 Delver, he just has to bring them in.
Is it for sure, does Jeff know that Kevin's on Delvers? I mean,
he did look a lot like a control deck in that game.
Yeah, when you saw stuff like those one-ofs, right? Kolagon's Command, Dreadbore. I'm not sure that my opponent is a Delver deck.
If you think he's just a control deck, then Lightning Helix is just terrible. So that one could just stay on the board.
All right, for Kevin Jones, he's got a full set of Ancestral Visions in his sideboard, and then some extra removal: 2 Counter Squall, 2 Magma Spray, 2 Crumble to Dusk, a 1 Vampiric Link, a Kolagon's Command, a Dispel, a Vandal Blast, and an Engineered Explosives.
So the obvious change here is Magma Spray over Remand. Magma Spray is great against Voice Resurgence. It's the most important card. Remand's pretty slow. Could bring in K Command, could bring in Explosives. I think they're a little too slow, but they're also relatively powerful.
All right, players are going to get ready for Game 2. What we have over at StarCityGames.com coming up with the Eldritch Moon pre-release is, of course, meaning that we'll have the Season 2 Regional Championships. So you can expect on weekends right after the new sets releases. We always have state and regionals, so coming up at the end of the summer, we are going to have regionals. This is next month. So first of all, we have an exclusive playmat and token. This is given away to the first 200 players to register at each location. So you saw the Dragon playmat. We have the Hot Pursuit Dragon playmat. And now we have our Goblin token. This is exclusive to regionals. His name is Ugh, Not Again.
Oh, because the thing happened more than once.
Right.
Yeah.
So you get those. That is free for the first 200 players to register. So you're going to want to go ahead and pre-register for this one. Now, it's going to be happening on August 6th. That's the same weekend as the Pro Tour. So we have that one, and it is going to be standard, and it'll be happening at places all around the country. So we see here all the locations on this map is happening. And in Canada. You see we have one up there as well. So you can find out that. We have the listing here over on the right side of the screen. You can find them at starcgames.com/regionals. Find out more as well. Going for Game 2, and Kevin this time shows his deck's true colors. It is the Delver of Secrets turn 1.
If Jeff didn't know before, he knows now.
And it's going to go ahead and flip right away, making it a completely fair and reasonable Magic card as he draws Serum Visions for the turn.
Also bad news for Jeff, his 2-drop was Casaldi Pride Mage and not Voice of Resurgence.
So what I was going to say is where my complaints have been with Delver in Modern is, unlike Legacy, he can be a real jerk in Modern about when he wants to flip.
I am much more concerned with the rate at which he dies than which he doesn't flip.
Everybody plays Lightning Bolt?
I think that he'll generally flip in 2 or 3 turns very, very consistently, and the fact that he doesn't always flip on turn 2 is just dramatically overstated by a lot of players. I think it's just whining for the most part.
Yeah, but that's what I didn't say. No argument there.
Okay.
Court of Calling from Hoogland. Does it while... So Kevin cast that Serum Vision, so while the shields are down, he's going to court up, looks like a Birds of Paradise.
If it's right to bolt the bird, usually it's certainly right now. Of course, Kevin's missed his second land drop.
Okay, so Kevin kept that turn Delver to flip off Serum Visions, doesn't have the land drop. Looks like he still hasn't hit the land.
Assuming that Kevin's opener had Visions and Delver, I think that you keep one-landers on the back of Visions. I think you mulligan them on the back of Delver. I would have liked to.
No,
he flipped the Visions to Delver. So I think that this hand was probably actually just a mulligan if this is what's happening in this game.
And now a Nahiri from Hoogland is going to exile away the Insectile Aberration. Kevin had a Spell Snare in hand. I think he kept one lander based on Delver and Spell Snare, but you can't Spell Snare that Planeswalker, and we may have a very quick Game 2.
Yeah, I think that this wasn't even a particularly close hand. I think this was firmly a mulligan.
If the hand... Okay, now I have a question. If that card, the land, instead of being Watery Grave, was Steam Vents, he's got 2 Lightning Bolts in his hand, does that become a keep?
No.
Even we have 4 castable cards, but we just... one land is still one land.
On the play, that's a snap mulligan. On the draw, you think about it and then mulligan.
All right. I understand.
You just don't play enough lands. You need to hit up. You generally need to get to 4 mana to win these matches.
And this will close it out. Jeff pluses the Nahiri. He discards a land, then plays Glenelend or Archmage, leaving up 2 blue mana. Kevin is not going to... There's no way he can get that Nahiri off before Emrakul happens.
So it looks like Kevin brought in Counter Squall.
Interesting. Yeah, he discarded it to hand size there.
Jeff has... Nahiri's
He has
in a
four
high volume.
Nahiris,
He has
yeah.
Corda Calling. I don't hate this. I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
It sounds to me like you normally don't board it in this matchup.
No.
But now you're thinking there's 4 Nahiris. Maybe.
I think I'm just sitting on the 4 mana leaks. This might make me reconsider boarding out the remans, because I think you can still be tempo positive and win before Nahiri matters, and I don't think you want that narrow of a counterspell against a deck that look at this creature column on this deck list. There's like 400 of them. Like I just think that countersquall is a little too narrow.
It's really a concession to Nahiri if he's boarding them in, isn't it?
Yeah, but then Jeff also just has like Pia and Kiran Nalar.
That card's great against Grixis.
If he casts that card and I have Countersquall in my hand and either Remand or Mana Leak on my sideboard, I feel really, really bad about that circumstance.
Can Kevin go full control? Can he board in these Ancestral Visions, these Countersqualls, and these Magma Sprays, all 8, and then just really slow it down?
I'd advise against it. One of the major strengths is that turn 1 Delver, and that's why that Lightning Helix is somewhat appealing on Jeff's side. Those 2 copies of Lightning Helix. You do need to close this game quickly because Jeff has a lot of very powerful top decks, Eternal Witness, that kind of stuff.
All right. We're underway. This is the deciding game between the two. Kevin is on the play. He starts out by shocking for a Steam Vents and Thought Scouring himself. Jeff just has Temple Garden.
Even if I don't have Spell Snare, I think I at least pretend like I do in this window. I don't see a reason to cast Thought Scour main phase.
No, this is on end step. They're just playing. They're playing quickly.
Oh, right.
They're playing quickly.
Kevin was on the play. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I apologize, Kevin. You're great. You're doing great.
He's not motoing everything. I just got to a point in standard where I just play Crack Evolving Wilds, say go.
I need to F8 right now.
He mills a Tassiger and a Steam Vents.
And he has another Tassiger in his hand, and that's a very excellent turn 2.
Is that a turn 2 4/5? All right then.
Looks like
I can get behind that.
He's not thinking about whether to cast it. He's thinking about what he wants to delve away.
Oh, he doesn't even have to delve everything. He gets to keep something?
Yep.
Well, he's keeping the Thought Scour then, right?
Seeing as the Tassiger, if it dies, it probably ends up in the graveyard, you might keep Thought Scour. Depending on how your hand is textured, Snapcaster Thought Scour isn't terrible on turn 3, especially because Jeff hasn't cast a Birds of Paradise with his 1 mana.
He actually just delves everything and leaves up a mana.
Okay. If he has a Spell Snare, this is a very excellent position.
Well, there's also an argument, if he's planning to activate that Tassiger, is it possible you don't want the Thought Scour in your graveyard? You just want,
Yeah, and specifically, I think that the only argument for leaving the Thought Scour is to Snapcaster Mage it to try to shape up your hand.
Okay. And Jeff has kept in the path to exiles. That's a big play for Jeff.
Yeah, now you might wish that you had the Tassiger in your graveyard if you draw a Kolaghan's Command.
Kevin does get an extra land early in the game. You see Jeff now just playing a Wooded Foothills, but I still think a good response for Hoogland nonetheless.
Yep. Kevin found the basic mountain. He's not expecting to get Blood Mooned, and red mana is most taxed in this matchup.
You're playing against Jeff Hoogland. You shouldn't assume you're not going to get Blood Mooned.
Fair enough. Of course, Kevin has, looks like 2 or 3 Lightning Bolts in his hand, so.
Oh, so he wants to be Blood Mooned.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
He'll just pass the turn, no plan drop.
Getting stuck on 3 lands isn't terrible. The fact that there's no threat in play is something that is going to be concerning the more this game progresses.
Well, if we get into this long, drawn-out affair of just control, go, that's good for Kevin still, I think?
On 3 lands, not necessarily, because he can't Snapcaster Mage a lot of his spells with only 3 lands in play.
Okay.
Once you get to 4 mana, you're very comfortable in that position.
That's when you can cast your Cryptic Commands. I don't think he plays those.
Yeah, something like that. Mostly just Snapcaster Mage, Mana Leak, or Terminate. And I believe I spot in Emrakul the Aeon's Torn in Jeff's hand.
Jeff he's all about drawing that card. Now plays a copy of Eidolon of Rhetoric. This one's out of the sideboard.
Yeah. So if this one sticks around, it makes those Snapcaster Mages a lot worse. And those double Lightning Bolts, if that's Kevin's only answer, that doesn't really play here.
Looks like he's got a Dreadbore in hand. 2 Lightning Bolts. He wouldn't... he seems to really be concerned about the card Nahiri in this matchup. If he Dreadbores the Eidolon, it's very dangerous. And he's going to, with that Eidolon on the stack, he's going to go ahead and play Snapcaster and flashback Thought Scour. Draws Counter Squall off the Scour.
He would have preferred to draw that fetch land or that terminate, I'm pretty sure.
But this is big. Now that he drew Counter Squall, if Kevin's playing around Nahiri, which I think he is, now he can Dreadbore with 2 up.
Yep, suddenly he's much better against Nahiri, and he does still have all those lightning bolts against most of the creatures in Jeff's deck. The real problem right now would be Restoration Angel from Jeff.
Sure. So he swings. Jeff goes to 17, and now we go to Hoogland's 4th turn. Land 4. Yeah, you see that Emrakul hiding out. Hoogland will play Wall of Roots. The 0/5 will wait around. Kevin will Spell Snare it.
Yeah, Kevin was not shy with that Spell Snare.
Is there a reason to hold it? Well, here's one. How about
Even at this stage in the game, a Voice of Resurgence would be very powerful for Jeff, though the Wall of Roots does very heavily accelerate a potential Chord of Calling. So I'm fine with the Spell Snare there. I don't think that was a bad play.
He'll go ahead and crack the Polluted Delta. A lot of answers in Kevin's hand. He has 2 Lightning Bolts, a Counter Squall, and an Electrolyze as his remaining cards. So it'll be interesting to see how he wants to deal with this Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, if he didn't kill it on his turn, I would be very surprised. If he draws another land, I imagine it'll be Electrolyze. If he doesn't, probably just Lightning Bolt.
Draw. We will wait to see what that one is. How about Delver of Secrets? Lightning Bolt, Delver.
That is what you call a good draw step.
Snapcaster swings. Yeah, and he gets to leave up that Counter Squall. It seems pretty perfect to me. Jeff draws a copy of the Harbinger. That is Nahiri again. But we know Kevin is at the ready with the counter magic.
Yep, and the Counter Squall, of course, would do 2 damage to Jeff. The Delver compounds the race in addition to that Snapcaster Mage. Jeff does not have a lot of time.
No, but just yet, he's not going to give it to Kevin. He's going to play Eternal Witness. That's going to target Path to Exile. Jeff plays land 5. His hand is Nahiri Emrakul Path. Passes the turn. We'll move back to Kevin. See if that Delver can transform. It did last time. It does this time in a big way. That's off a copy of Mana Leak.
Yep, and now Jeff gets to cast the Path with the Mana Leak on top of deck, but now that Kevin knows he's drawing Mana Leak,
he's going to Counter Squall the Path.
Right, if Jeff casts Path to Exile on on Jeff's own turn, which I don't think is necessarily correct, but Kevin might not have Counter Squalled it because he doesn't know he has the backup counter at that point.
So Jones will just swing the 3/2, putting Hoogland down to 10. Untaps, draws Voice of Resurgence. So you said it's a great card in the matchup. See if it's too little too late. He'll cast that with 3 up. Remember, Jeff knows about Mana Leak.
Yep. The Voice is not what I would... It's not appropriately on time, but it might not be too late. Really needs to find a way to deal with this Delver, though.
Eternal Witness will attack. If you look at life totals, Jeff's at 10, Kevin's at 11.
On the topic of too late, Kevin picks up a Spell Snare here.
He hits Hoogland down to 7. Now, a Lightning Bolt and an Electrolyzer are still in Kevin's hand.
Okay, I revised my position. The Voice was just too late.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Jeff is just dead in like 5 different ways.
Jeff draws a copy of Scavenging Ooze, but that would help were it not for the Spell Snare that Kevin had picked up. Looks like Kevin just has all the right answers at all the right times here.
And he doesn't really even have enough mana for the Scavenging Ooze to be that much of a hell. The Delver's clocking it for 3 a turn, and Kevin has a lot of ways to deal damage to Jeff.
Well, he plays a green mana source. Yeah, he'll go for Scavenging Ooze. He could gain 3 life off it if it resolves, but Kevin at the ready has the Spell Snare, and he'll use it. Jeff gets an Elemental.
Rats.
I think Kevin missed this.
I mean, Kevin missed it, but does
still,
it matter?
I don't think it matters. So the Ooze is still countered. Well, if Kevin's planning to win on the next attack, and I think he is, then this doesn't matter.
Right. I believe that Kevin is just supposed to do nothing, just take this damage for now, go to his turn, attack, make sure that gets through, and then cast the Lightning Bolt, because a Counter Squall on a Path to Exile in that window would be lethal with the Lightning Bolt, and the Electrolyzed damage just doesn't kind of matter. So I imagine that the rest of this turn will be Kevin just taking the damage and going to his turn. Blocking here is also fine. Doesn't really matter.
Eternal Witness and Snapcaster will trade. Kevin will go to 9. So what are you saying the card he's got to be concerned about on the burnout plan is Path to Exile here?
Or Lightning Helix.
Okay, or Lightning Helix.
There's a lot of glare on those lands. I don't know if the point. Jeff at least has access to one kind of instant speed removal spell.
And I believe he has Nahiri and Emrakul in hand. So here's a swing. Hoogland to 4. Kevin gonna go for it. But Lightning Helix would beat him.
Yeah, that is true.
So he'll pass. I actually like that pass quite a bit.
Yeah, Jeff does not have enough damage to be lethal this turn, and now that he's casting this Nahiri, great window for Counter Squall, Lightning Bolt.
So Electrolyze Bolt, anything.
Yeah, you could just like leave the Nahiri on the stack and Electrolyze Bolt.
With Nahiri in the stack, he'll Bolt Jeff. Down to 1. And he'll Electrolyze him. Game and match, Kevin Jones.
Of course, Grixis Delver moving on to a 3-0. Good job, Kevin Jones.
What else would it do?
Yeah, that's not big on losing.